Crafted comedy
by Grey Wolf.
It's the talk of people in the know. Welcome to the G-Block Show.
Now here is a preview of this week's G-Block Show podcast. If we went to the moon in 1969, call me an optimist or a fool, I don't know what, but I would think by now we should be, that should be like going to France, like a conehead. We should just be going to the moon like nothing to it. This back and forth, you know, hey, you know, what are you doing this week? I don't think I'm going to the moon. You know, that's the way it should be, but for... And now, let's listen into G-Block Show. You know, now, just now, I'm hearing them talk about this whole thing has been coming up. This going to the moon, planning it. God, they got everything. We just got to think about it. Now, they're still saying 2025. It's now 2022. So we're looking at another 3 years, if that, maybe another 3 years to go to the moon. And I'm just going to point some things out that I think there are some people that don't believe we ever went to the moon, number one. And there are some people who believe that 9/11 was an inside job, number two. And there's some people who just swear to be damned. We went to the moon, and the same thing. They just swear to be damned. No, it was an inside job. And so I'm not going to talk about 9/11 right now, but I'm going to talk about the moon, just briefly. I think it's a fun thing to talk about. When I was growing up, and I was in Colorado Springs, which is very military. We had the Air Force there and all that. And in our schools, it was a big damn deal, the whole moon thing. And we used to, they bring out the little, what they called the AV, audio visual cart. And this is like going back to my first grade. I remember this maybe one of the first times. It's like, oh wow, look, TV. I feel right at home. Anyway, this AV cart. They're like, well, we're going to watch them launch from I think it was Cape Canaveral. I'm sure the Kennedy Space Station. I get them kind of confused. I don't know if they're one of the same, but I'm pretty sure it was Cape Canaveral is where they launched from, of Cocoa Beach. So it's like, oh, this is cool. It's going to interrupt our spelling bee, but what the hell? And so this was big stuff. And, the whole class is there. And they're firsthand, they're explaining before this happens, you realize this is the most monumental thing that mankind has ever undertaken. Please understand the gravity, no pun intended, or lack thereof. That the gravity of this whole situation this is huge. We're going into space, man. We're going to land on the moon. So anyways, yeah, it's like I'm down with that. That is pretty, of course, at that age, it's pretty hard to conceive of really how really big this is. But they're saying this just goes to show you all the things that everything it took for this to happen all started on the bedrock of good education. So that's why it's important that you learn good communication, you learn your math and all this. And that's why it's so important that you go to school. But maybe one day you'll grow up and you can maybe go to the moon or who knows where, Jupiter, someplace like that. Send you out in the middle of nowhere. If you're a really good student, we'll just send you way out there. And so it's like, okay, cool. And then we get to see them. They land on then they land on the moon. And of course, we all know this, but they showing, of course, pictures back. That's also, it's like the first time we actually really see the moon, look at Earth from way up here and stuff. But they land. And so anyways, they land on the moon. And we all know the thing. I think it's the one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind. And the guy's bouncing around. It's just really cool. So that's great. And so I'm just thinking as a kid, well, we're going to be seeing a lot more of this. Yeah, we're just getting warmed up. Maybe by the time I'm a teenager, we'll be just trucking back and forth here. And so the next thing I know, it seems like it's like 71 or 72. I lose track of these things. There's a big debate going on with the teachers as to whether we should bring this AV card out and interrupt the spelling bee to see these guys launch again from do another space launch and, another rocket launch. And I swear, I remember, I swear it was like, oh my God, this has already gotten to be so passe that the teachers are really debating whether this is worth interrupting just a little slice of our regular routine and curriculum to watch another rocket take off into the heavens. Well, as I recall, it was sort of a half thing. It's like, all right, we'll do this, but we're only going to watch like 5 minutes of it. That's it. And kids get back to work. Like as if we're just a bunch of caged animals. So it's important that we don't miss a beat, right, of getting our education. So then I remember the song by Elton John, Rocket Man. And so now they're talking about going to Mars, see? And he says it plainly. He says, Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kid. Chill factor's cold as hell. And then there's no one there to raise them. Yeah. So it's like, okay, it's just like, I can see where space is like, when you think about it, where are we really going? I mean, if we're looking into the heavens, we're on the moon, maybe next to Mars. And let's face it, it's a great place for singles and stuff like that. Just want to go up there and, you just don't want to be a family. You're not going to go to, the families are not going to be wanting to go to Mars, especially after this song by Elton John. It's not the first time he's rained on somebody's parade, but I digress. So, all right, now let's just keep moving along. It's 1975. Nothing's going on. No space launch. Nothing. No rockets. And the next thing you know, we got the shuttle thing. It's basically like space bus. They go up there and they can get up into the outer orbit, but they don't do anything, but they just shuttle. And then we got the space station. It's cool. We got this little station out there in space, and then we got the shuttle. I'm not sure how this all works, but we're not going to the moon. I know that. It's kind of strange. 1980, 85, 90, 95, 100, 2000, the year 2000. Wow. Year 2000, like 2001. What was that? Space Odyssey. Yeah, we were supposed to be, woo, nothing's happening. We're not going to the moon. No, we're hanging out now with the cosmonauts and, our Russian counterparts up there in the space station, seeing if we can grow and stuff like that. See if we can grow something. And that's cool. But I'm thinking, we went to the moon back like in 69, before 1970. I mean, here it is. 30 years later. No moon. What is up with that? Of course, then there's people saying, well, we never went to the moon, people. It was all staged. It was a Hollywood production. And most of the world doesn't even believe it. They just like, no, that's the U.S. That's what they do. They're good at this Hollywood stuff. People in the U.S., of course, we're number one. So, yeah, we went to the moon. No denying it. And if you do, you're anti-American, kind of. But, all right, fine. It's just like we went there, the man walked on the roof, we conquered, jumped off, bounced around a little bit. I'm not sure if one of them hit a golf ball or something. What the heck? We planted a flag. There, ours. Conquered it, and that's it. We're good. 30 years. So 30 years. Now let's go up. Let's just move up. 2010. Still nobody going back to the moon. I mean, Jesus, man. I mean, it's been 40 years. I mean, by now we should be, if we went to the moon in 1969, call me an optimist or a fool. I don't know what, but I would think by now we should be like totally doing, that should be like going to France. Like a cone head. We should just be going to the moon like nothing to it. This back and forth. Hey, what are you doing this week? I think I'm going to the moon. That's the way it should be. But 40 years, and I'm not talking just any 40 years. If you look at from 1930 to 1907, what technologically changed, and we all can get a pretty good grasp of that, pretty amazing. Well, from 1970 to 2010, it's like, wow, like 10 times the amount of technological change. It's inconceivable how much more technology it changed. By 2010, they're saying there's as much technology in these new smartphones in one phone as there was in all, if you combined it, in all of NASA back in 1969. And so it's making me think, now let's just say that was a bit of an exaggeration, but no, I've heard that. I heard that on one of these like science things. So you've got your people are walking around basically with NASA in their hand now. It's just, it's so common. And computers that used to fill auditoriums now take up, as much space as like your little phone. It's just so amazing. The quantum leaps technology has made. Okay, so that's just 40 years. Okay, now let's move on up to 2020. 50 frickin' years. Over 50 years since we've been to the moon. And they're saying if all goes well, then they're working on it. They're working on it now. There's all this whole thing now. We got these billionaires wanting to, they're sending their rockets, so people can at least get up out of the atmosphere so they can feel what it's like to float around. I just say, just get in a swimming pool. You don't need to go at a penis-shaped rocket to feel like that. But, people like William Shatner and stuff, whatever gets them off. But so they're still saying 2020. 50 years hence, over 50 years, since we first walked on the moon, they're saying maybe in 5 years we'll be able to get back there. That's the plan. Okay, let that sink in. 55 years. That's what it will be. By 2025, it will have been over 55 years since we first landed men on the moon. And they walked around and they collected some rocks and they had some good times, did their little leap for mankind. But 55 years and all this technology later is when we can finally get back to going to the moon. I'm just saying. I'm not going to say whether or not. I'm not going to say that, whether or not we ever went to the moon. I'll leave that up to you. But I will say there's a big, super big question mark that fills all this space between this time of 55 years that I have to say, why on earth did it take, or is it taking, and we don't even know for sure they'll be able to pull it off. So still, it's 2022, and this is being what I'm saying. But if say they do in 2025, why did it take 55 years to go back to the moon? Something that we were able to do back before we had hardly any technology. It's not just us. Why didn't China? They're always trying to prove crap to us and to the world. You would have thought they would have made it somewhere within this time span. Russia, who knows? Russia is a very odd technologically. It's just hard to kind of think like they I don't know. But they were trying to get us in the space race. All of a sudden, the U.S. said we got to the moon, and Russia seemed to go like, whew, okay, we don't have to worry about that one. We're just like, all right, we're second to you there on that, and that's that. That lets us off the hook. That's how it seemed, doesn't it? If you think about it. It seemed like it just got let off the hook. But okay, America got that one. All right, who knows? Maybe we'll get it for biggest nuclear disaster, something like that. That could be our claim to fame if the U.S. doesn't beat us to it. And I think we damn near did with 3 Mile Island. But anyway, so by comparison, the last thing just to wrap this up, it would be almost like I'm trying to think of anything. It would be almost like the difference between, in terms of how far we've come technologically, I would think it would be almost the difference between a covered wagon, and at least a 1960 Chevy pickup truck. That's a kind of a fair analogy, somewhere in that vicinity. And it's to say, like, well, you could have made it, cross country in a covered wagon in 1860, and yet nobody tried to travel across country in all that time and anything else. It's like, well, they did it in a covered wagon, but I don't know that we could do it. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe someday we'll actually have something. It's just really puzzling. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and listen to today's show. And just remember, always just as simple as can be, just go out, be kind to one another, and love one another, as much as possible. Now, we'll catch you back here next time on the G-Block Show.
You've been enjoying another episode of the G-Block Show, and we hope you're telling your friends about the G-Block Show. If you have feedback or suggestions or would like to be a G-Block Show sponsor, please contact us at gblockshow.com. Hey, for the price of a fancy store-bought card, I will make you an online video card. An invitation, greeting, birthday wish, get well, congratulations, anything, and perhaps more than what you'd buy a traditional boring card for. I can make it for you. It's great because it's online and it can be shared or sent to anyone and everyone. No postage needed. And I'm sure you'll agree that I'm way more entertaining and lovable than any paper card. Not to mention I'm a celebrity. Oh, it's so easy. All you have to do is go to www.gblockshow.com. And that's all one word, gblockshow, and then, of course, a little .com. I'm very salty, and I can't wait to hear from you. Well, I can, but I'd rather not.